welcome Dr. Shalini. May I welcome Dr. Kamal Sethia, Chairman of Vardhman Group.
Thank you.
Thank you. I can see Dr. Skand Bali from Hyderabad. Thanks for joining us again. He's the principal of the Hyderabad Public School, Begumpet. Welcome, Skand.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Gupta. Thank you so much.
And we have with us Payal Rajpal. Welcome, Payal. And Payal is the founder of the Hack the Crisis India, South Asia, and head of Robotex. Welcome, Payal.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Good morning, everyone.
Good morning. And we have with us Dr. Madhav Dev Saraswat ji, and he is the principal of the Scindia School, Gwalior. Welcome, Dr. Madhav. Thanks for joining.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. Thank you.
Namaskar. Thank you. And with us, we have Dr. Kavita Aggarwal, who is chairperson of MISA. Welcome, Kavita ji. Thanks for joining.
Thank you very much.
Namaskar. Thank you. So the topic of this session, which is a part of the School Tech Summit, which we are holding online. The session is about future-ready schools, building technology infrastructure for learning and connecting. The COVID-19 situation has thrown us a huge challenge in terms of school education, where the schools are closed and the teaching has to happen online. And how are the schools handling this challenge, and what are the possible, of course, like we are seeing the challenges, and what are the opportunities for creating future-ready schools and using this crisis as an opportunity. So this is the topic of the discussion. And let me start with our speaker, Payal Rajpal, to give her views. I will reach out to each of the panelists and request to speak for about 3 to 4 minutes max, so that we can have a multiple round of discussions. Payal, let's start with you.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. So I'm pretty much going to, talk about what we have rather implemented in schools and colleges via our robotics workshops and championships. So what we've seen is that obviously education's age-old R's, which is reading, writing, and arithmetic, are being joined by a fourth, which is rethink. And predominantly using technology to rethink, and using new database technologies are opening up way to transform practices, structures, and cultures in school. What we also firmly believe in is blended learning, and it's very slowly becoming a reality. When we talk about the new education policy 2020, it clearly states that equipping students with key skills of 21st century is imperative, and reduction in curricular content to enhance essential learning is critical. Whereas we've seen the success of blended learning in the last decade and a half in many countries, including India, where the IGC, SE, IB, and EdXL board. Last week seminar on role of tech in blended learning, we had Pro-Chancellor Brat stating how infrastructure priorities should be replaced by bandwidth and electricity, which was very interesting. Another feature which we use really strongly is artificial intelligence to help personalize the learning experience of every child. Even the recent investment of Bill Gates through the Bill and Melinda Foundation of 120 million in personalized training, with the idea to develop software that creates individual lesson plans for students based on their performance. So the investment itself confirms that the world is taking AI seriously, not just to fix loopholes of AI in the system, but to adapt to individual student learning, grasping abilities. And we at Robotics use AI to identify gaps in learning, smart content more prevalently, experience based on past behavior stimulations, etc. And remote proctoring is also a new added technology which we've been using to simplify the exam invigilation process. And the third thing which we use really, a lot is augmented reality and inbuilt facial recognition to determine the grasping levels. because we firmly believe that everything is created twice, first in the mind and then in reality. And therefore, virtual reality, mixed reality, and the combination of AR and VR has given us very, very progressive and purposeful results amongst the students. So yes, this is what we've been actively using for the last 3 years via our workshops. And I think this should be one of the few new features that schools should think of adding on in their given curricula.
Great. Excellent inputs, Payal. Thanks for highlighting the new ICT features which can be used. And let me reach out to Dr. Dev Saraswat, principal of the Scindia School, Gwalior, to give your views on the future ready schools using ICTs.
Thank you. Thank you for this invitation, but I think you have invited me by mistake.
Okay, it's okay to have a different view. It's
for two reasons. One is that I have a very strong bias against technology. Even though I know it for sure as a teacher that there is no way out. You have to adopt and adapt to technology to help your children and to help yourself to survive in the professional world. Second is that I have no clue what is going to happen tomorrow. So I will not be able to help understand this audience that how the future schools would look like. So today what I would do is I would prefer to listen to all the experts, and then maybe next time I am of some use. But before, I would like to share my understanding of technology. And I will start with the topic. And the topic is that future ready schools, building technology infrastructure for assisting in learning, not in learning. Because I look at technology as a tool to assist in learning and connecting. So, and unless we understand this focus, I think we will not be able to do justice as far as uses of technology is concerned. Second aspect is infrastructure. And when we talk about infrastructure, we are not only talking about hardware and software, we are also talking about people. So when we are looking at investing in the infrastructure, we should keep in mind that that will be used by people. And unless the major portion of that investment goes in people, it will be rendered useless. So to equip people to create buying, the first investment of infrastructure has to happen in the shape of people. So this is one premise. Another premise is that I have understood very forcefully, I have understood that technology is going to help us in transaction of knowledge. But that is only one bit of school education, because schooling is everything beyond transaction of knowledge. Another premise is that you can transact knowledge, but you cannot replace the teacher. So there could be, the slogan for tomorrow that you should be high on tech, but you should be higher on touch. Because unless there is human touch, there is no point, training machines through the machines. While people talk a lot about 21st century skills, and they also try to relate the role of technology as if every skill can only be imbibed through technology, I think we miss out on a few points. Like whatever research says, I am a simple master, I am a school master. So I'm not a researcher and I'm not an expert. So whatever I am sharing only through my readings. And whenever people talk about, the first thing they talk about is communication skill. The second is teamwork. Third is problem solving. Fourth is self-management. Then planning, organizing skills. And then they talk about technology skills that contribute to effective execution of tasks. And after that, they talk about lifelong learning skills, initiative, and enterprise skills. Why I have quoted these, some of these skills is that the minute you shift your focus from human to technology, then you are going to miss out on several of these skills, which could only be imbibed through human connect. In nutshell, technology is essential. We have to have it. We have to invest a lot. How it would look, I'm not sure. By day, it's evolving. What kind of schools we are going to have. But the focus of education, the purpose of education is not going to change. So whatever we do together, whatever we decide, whatever we plan for tomorrow, we cannot, ignore four things: that education for happiness, education for health, and education for usefulness. And in all these three aspects, technology is going to play an important role. But to what extent? So the role of the future schools has to decide that in creating these three things, how and to what extent technology should play a role. And now fourth, post-COVID is that the first thing is, first most important thing is living in itself to remain alive. So future schools should be addressing these things, and technology is going to play an important role. That's my premise to start with, and I will be more than happy to answer any question after this, but I will not be able to help that what kind of technology you would need for all these things. Thank you very much for this.
Sure. Excellent inputs, Dr. Madhav, and thanks for highlighting it's all about people. Technology second, first is the people. So let me request Dr. Kavita Aggarwal, Chairperson of MISA, to speak, please. Your views.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to my opinion and the thought process on the future school and how after COVID what we are going to be and how are we preparing our school. So let me introduce myself in one line that I am a chairperson of MISA, Members of International Schools Association, which is an association of more than 100 schools all over India who are following Cambridge curriculum. So we have formed this association only with one principal goal, that is to empower the teachers to transact the quality curriculum. Now, after 21st of March, what we have seen that there was a total dynamic had changed. So we can say that the need is the mother of invention. Overnight, all the teachers have changed their role. Overnight, all the students have changed their role. Parental role changed. So suddenly, that was the time when our final exams were scheduled and all the planning was in process, and lot of submissions were demanded from the teachers. So it was quite strange and unprecedented thing for the teachers to come up with the technology, blended technology, and fulfill the expectations of the school. So the teacher has changed herself overnight. So we can say without change there is no innovation and creativity and incentive for improvement. Those who initiate change have better opportunity to manage the change. So the teachers, those who were struggling and actually looking out for development and personal growth, have actually learned this overnight. They have learned to operate the device. They have become confident to come in front of camera. They have learned to use different apps and also connect with the children virtually. So this is how the teachers have totally changed their role. Now, when the school leadership is concerned, the school leadership is also changed drastically. So where we were demanding everything physically, the physical meetings, the physical planning, everything came virtually, and we had to equip ourselves to transact the business with device and in a different kind of an environment. So it was quite challenging for us, and I'm so, I want to say that all the leadership positions which are there, they are above 45, I believe so. So at this stage, learning something new becomes a little bit more challenging. To adapt it also, to adapt the change is also a very, very big thing. So even for the children, they were confined they are confined in four walls. They are not able to get out of the house. They have to just sit in front of the screen, and there is no outlet of any kind of energy. So the change is drastic. And then all the schools adapted the blended learning model. So blended learning model is like sometimes you're coming virtually in front of the students, and sometimes you are sending the curriculum in form of videos. So there they can study at their own leisure time and at their own comfortable space. So this is how technology has supported the curriculum. The technology has supported the teachers and I know some of the teachers, I don't have the photographs, but I know some of the teachers, those who went from to their native place because of the lockdown, they had no connectivity. They had no internet connection. So they went to the place in the field or in the farm, wherever they could get the good connectivity with their mobile phone, and they have conducted the lessons. So this is how the technology has really supported to reach out to the kids. But I would like to say one more thing, that technology is not everything. If we are looking at the IQ, EQ, AQ, and SQ of the children in the holistic development of the school education, we are catering to only few domains. Where the EQ part is there, the connect is very minimum. Where the SQ part is there, the connect again becomes minimum, because more of the influence is of the family. And when IQ part is there, we are catering to 60 to 70%, and more of the exposure wherever they can go ahead with their research. And of course, adversity quotient comes automatically in place because suddenly they had to switch over the role. So this is how the entire technology has supported the education industry. But the future is blended learning. We do not know how the students will be able to come to school and for how much time they will be able to come to school. And even if they come, they are now in habit of taking a lot of things virtually. They have become independent researchers, they have become independent learners, and they have become the tech savvy. So the school presence will not remain so important like only gaining the knowledge and delivering the results. So this is what I see. The blended learning is future, where the will run on half technology and half physical presence. So this is my take on this. The technology is boon and bane both.
Sure. Dr. Kavita Aggarwal, thanks for highlighting the emergence of blended learning in these situations. And you also mentioned in the end that technology is a boon and a bane. We are all worried about excessive use of technology in these times. The screen time has increased, and it's tough for both children and the teachers, of course. Let us move on to Dr. Kamal Sethia, Chairman of the Vardhman Group, for your views, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, all the learned panelists, the organizers, and listeners across the country. I am Kamal Sethia, and I am chairperson of two schools, Vardhman International School and Sri Kalyan World School in Jaipur. And I'm also looking after educational institutions run by an NGO with about 15 years experience in teaching and training. Well, Dr. Madhav has given me a few extra minutes, so I would like to make use of it. And I would like to go a little bit deeper and in details about the education. The question is, are we future ready? No, we are not. The technology has entered in the field of education, but it was an accident. In fact, when the COVID-19 hit the whole world and the schools were closed abruptly, I remember it was the month of February, as Kavita ji has mentioned, and we were struggling. The exams were approaching. Students had their doubts to be removed. At that time, the technology came to our rescue. We were not fully equipped, but we could somewhat, make use of the technology, and we conducted e-classes. We also had other models of removing doubts of the students, guiding them for the examinations. And this was how it was introduced. But as I said, it was introduced in a haste. So we were not ready fully for the entire learning process, and the technology is yet to be re-evaluated and revisited, because we have to see as to how this can be more useful during the COVID situation and post-COVID situation. As my other participants have mentioned, that this has come to stay, and there will be a blend of education even when the schools reopen. I'm a student of marketing, and in education, I would like to first talk about the end user, and who is the recipient of service. It is the student. Parents have expectations from us. Society is looking at us. The nation wants good administrators and good people. So we have to fulfill the expectations of each one of them. And the e-learning process has not only hardware and software, but also human. And these people are the student, teacher, and then the subject content has to be modified. It has to be made more presentable in the form of where it is acceptable to e-learning. Then we need e-learning platforms, electronic gadgets, high-speed internet connectivity, data privacy and protocols. Then there are legal aspects involved in it. There are issues of intellectual property rights. Then government regulations and support is required. Then we have to guard against the misuse. And foremost is the process of evaluation. Whatever we are delivering, is it really reaching the beneficiary? So that's where the a separate comprehensive process of evaluation has also to be evolved. Now, to understand the situation, we conducted a survey, and we had a symposium in which we invited all stakeholders, like administrators, educators, sociologists, physician, ophthalmologist, child psychologist, parents, teachers, students. Everybody was involved, and we took inputs from them. So then we got certain, feedbacks. The first thing which all the schools have faced is resistance to change. There has been a tremendous resistance from the parents, because there were concerns, and they were really genuine concerns of parents, that how can you expose a child to the bright screen, light emitting screen for such a long period. And by sitting at a long stretch, he might have the abdominal problem, shoulder pain, strain in the eyes, and so on. So this was one thing. Now, why this is happening is because we are not properly equipped. We do not have the right setup. In fact, the gadgets which we are using are not meant for study. At present we are using laptop, mobile, and tabs, but these are not dedicated education tools. So we also interacted with mobile companies, and we have given them specifications that we don't want extra hardware and software. We just want learning tools, and there should not be no access to the other websites, because this was also a concern of the parents that if you give them a mobile, they can visit other sites, undesirable content can be viewed. So that was a very serious concern. And in fact, as a responsible educator, it is our liability to overcome all these problems. So what we need is in technology, learning has tremendous potential. It has the potential of reach, as the director, sir, from CBSE said, that our target audience is mostly in the rural areas, remote areas of India. How to reach them, how to give them benefit of e-learning. So there, it's a role of government. In fact, this thing what we have done, we have given inputs to the Ministry of HRD, now known as Education Ministry, that this is how the entire process of e-learning has to be looked at. And these are the basic requirements of e-learning to be more effective and to increase its reach in the rural areas. The technology was introduced in India somewhere in the month of February. But e-learning and technological learning is very common in Western world. In fact, in aeronautics, in space science, a lot of simulation, 3D model techniques are being used. Even in understanding the human anatomy, you don't need to really dissect the body these days. You can simply see the visual images of the cut portions, the sectional portions of the body. In building construction also, the technology is being used to see that how much of ventilation and human level will be there in the rooms. The technology has come to stay. It has tremendous power, and this has come to stay. In fact, it is not only that we are using the e-classes and tech learning in this COVID period. This will continue. Now, coming to other part, I'm not advocating for technology, because I know that a school has 4 major roles. You see, मैं इसे हिंदी में बताना चाहूँगा. शिक्षा, स्वास्थ्य, संस्कार और अनुशासन. What we are able to deliver right now is just information. We are in touch with them. This has some psychological advantages. This has the continuity. Some part of the course is being covered, which would have been difficult otherwise to cope up with the classes when the schools reopen. So these are certain gaps which are being filled right now, but it is not a complete education. See, the environment of school can never be replaced. The interaction with teacher or fellow students, and the playground, the library, the laboratory, and the environment of school, that's something which children are missing. In fact, they are really suffocated. They want to go out and play, but situation doesn't permit. So when that will happen, the schools will again get the same importance, and they will be the places where the complete training takes place, where complete development of children takes place. Now, the government has a very, very important role to play here. The policy which has come, 2020 policy, education policy, has a few very important ingredients in it. My observation was that, you see, there are two things. One is biological age, and second is,
Let me interrupt and like the next round of question. Actually, I am going to ask about this national education policy.
Okay, right.
Views on this. So let us go there.
So you can take the next part.
Yes. So let me request Dr. Shalini Advani, School Director from the Pathways School, Noida, to give your views. Dr. Shalini.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gupta. So it's been interesting to listen to the other speakers who came before me. I have a lot of agreement with the idea that there are certain fundamentals of education, and those are centrally around people. And they are about particular types of thinking skills. Education should be about analysis, it should be about problem solving, it should be about collaboration. I have to say that in many ways, our own education systems have not always delivered on these. Not adequately on the people-centered aspect, not adequately even on the thinking skills aspect. And I think the COVID lockdown has made visible and has forced upon us a change that is actually happening already in the world around. And is somewhere education has not always taken that on board. So it this time has really pushed that onto us. We have been forced to change. And that change is, whether we like it or not, that change is now embedded in our world. It's embedded in the way that we want to develop children and how we need to prepare them for the world of work into which they're going to grow up. So yes, there is resistance to change in schools. And if we need to look at the way ahead, there are certain practical strategies, I think, that in education we need to bring in. One thing that has become very clear is that leadership is really important. Leadership is so important in inspiring change, and this is a time of change. And so leaders themselves have to walk the talk, have to accept that for the first time in leadership, in our generation, leaders are not expected to have all the answers. But as leaders, we should be asking the right questions, which inspire change and inspire the willingness to change. Secondly, I think, teachers have been forced into change. And what we really need to have is a very robust system of teacher support and professional development. One which focuses not on content, but on concepts, on the thinking skills that I was talking about earlier. And then there are going to be visible changes. Many speakers have talked about blended learning. Let's think about what will this mean for the physical education program. For a very long time, we are going to be thinking about the safety of team sports. And yet, health and has to be an essential part of education. So maybe our PE curriculum will need to adapt, will need to look more at things like dance as PE, or yoga, of course, as PE, to look at individual sports, So that's just one example I'm giving of an area which is going to require radical change. The other one is, of course, whether in schools we like it or not, parents have become part of the classroom. And teachers really need to be equipped to manage that. In principle, I feel actually that's a good thing. That in schools, we've had the luxury of closing our school gates and keeping parents out and saying that, education is our responsibility, it is our business. You get the monthly or the quarterly or the half-yearly report card, and that's it. And that's your role. Now parents are in the classroom, and in fact, for those of us who have the younger children, particularly in the lower primary, parents have had to become teachers as well. So how do our school systems incorporate this aspect of engaging parents, of helping them to fulfill our educational mission? Yeah, we're the professionals, but then we've got these teachers who are parents. And we need to have fairly robust systems in place where we accept that and we incorporate that. Looking at the nature of teaching and learning, there are, as I said, things that are unchangeable. But technology is also enabling a different level of learning. It's individualizing learning, and you need to have the resources to be able to do that. And isn't that what we want? Isn't that an ideal situation where you can actually reach out to meet the learning needs of every individual child, where you move away from an institutional structure where they are a class to thinking about them as individuals? This really important skill of collaboration, technology helps that. When you have children working together on a Google Doc or Google Slides, then they're learning to listen to each other and learn from each other. Augmented reality, and we talked about that a little earlier as well. Again, the amount that augmented reality can help students understand concepts. For instance, something like if you take the area of a hexagonal pyramid. For a child who deals with 2D in a traditional classroom with pen and paper, a hexagonal pyramid is not a real lived concept. But augmented reality helps children understand in maths a spatial understanding. They're able to really understand this object. Another example is the gamification of learning. And, Payal had talked about that, I think. That's become really important. We had this presentation on Prodigy just now, but there are so many others. Quizlets and Kahoots and all of these things. And what's important about the gamification of learning, for anybody who's played games on your phone, you know that it takes away the fear of failure, right? You play a game and you don't do well in it, and it inspires you to try it again and to get better and better. Now, if we can bring some of that mindset into learning, we've really progressed a lot. Another one is that we know that the textbook and the teacher should not be the outside limit of learning. You want children in today's world to be able to reach out and expand their learning from other resources. And a teacher can help that, can guide that, maybe through the use of creating hyperdocs, which have a whole lot of resources embedded for students to be able to explore. And in fact, probably technology will also help a lot of the aspects of teachers. If you think of group meetings or staff meetings, why do we have to have them only within specific hours and school hours? The flexibility it gives teachers to be able to collaborate and discuss from home using technology, much as we're all sharing our ideas here on Zoom. Who would have thought that something like that was possible? So I really feel that, technology is here because the world has changed. And we have to keep our foothold in what are the traditional values of education. And technology is only a tool to enable us to deliver those differently, and in many cases, to deliver those better.
Great. Excellent inputs, Dr. Shalini and Advani. I think you have talked about various dimensions of the technology transformation, and as you rightly mentioned that Zoom always existed, like a tool like this always existed, but we never thought about using it and how we can use the existing technologies for transforming education in the current situation, which is forced upon us, is a huge issue, and we have to address it. Let me request our next panelist, Dr. Skand, Bali, who is the principal of the Hyderabad Public School, to give your thoughts. Dr. Skand.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. First of all, thank you so much for inviting me over for this session today. I think most of the opening remarks have already been given by the fellow panelists. I would like to take a line along with the lines of what Dr. Saraswat said. Technology is here to stay, definitely. And I think no educator in the world would say that it is not here to stay. However, I also strongly believe that technology cannot replace the human touch. Technology can only assist the teachers. Technology can only assist educators. It can bring in those dimensions into the classrooms which were missing for a long, long time. For example, when we grew up as students, we were told how a volcano looks like. We were told about the digestive systems. We were told about the river inside the river. We were told inside the oceans. Now with augmented reality, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, you can actually bring all of that into your classroom. A child can actually be inside the digestive system and then learn it. A child can actually be inside the rose petal and see how the rose or a flower looks like from inside. So these are some very handy tools which have come in technology. What COVID has taught us is not necessarily that technology is important. We already knew that technology is important and is going to increase in terms of its participation in education. But what COVID told us, the opportunity was that technology can be a way out for us in times of crisis. We all at times face situations where schools are shut down. We all at times face situations where because of excessive rains or because of being unwell, the teacher being unwell, you can't take your class despite the fact that you want to, you don't travel to the school, you don't come to the school. That is where technology can become very handy. If there is an emergency meeting which the principal or the educator has to conduct or the head of the department has to conduct, earlier we used to feel to wait till Monday or Tuesday when the school will reopen. You can actually do it on a Sunday now. That's what the technology has told us. This was all there, but unfortunately we were not using it for a long time. So I think technology is here to stay, definitely. Technology will play a very, very important part in education. That is also true. But whether the futuristic schools depend or related only with technology, I do not agree. I don't agree with the statement of my fellow panelists in the past that our schools are not future ready. I don't agree with that entirely. I think a lot of schools in our country are imparting quality education. Quality education is not just technology and delivery of curriculum. Quality education is imparting critical thinking, developing a sense of social service, developing communication, collaboration, creativity. There are many schools who are doing that work in India. I think we have to be, the schools don't have to be future ready. We have to have a curriculum designed in a way that our children are future ready. They should face any crisis in times to come. Schools have been doing well. Schools are doing well. They'll always do well. There's no reason why they won't. But what is more important is the focus of the head of the institution or the focus of the institution in a particular direction should be correct. So these are my opening remarks, and looking forward to your questions and listening to my fellow panelists as well. Thank you.
Excellent point. And especially I like this idea about that there are schools which are already future ready. They are delivering the next generation skills and education to the students anyway. But this topic was there to provoke each of us. In the next round, the question which I am going to put forward is that the new education policy which has been announced just 2 days back has a lot of new ways of looking at things. And I would love to have inputs from each of the panelists here that what you liked here, what you did not, and what's your view on this policy itself. So let me request Dr. Madhav Dev Saraswat to in fact give your remarks, and requesting each of the panelists to be brief for about 3 minutes each because we are running out of time. Yeah, Madhav.
I think it's too early to comment without understanding the nuances of the kind of changes. In principle, on the face of it, it is very, futuristic plan for education. But nevertheless, one has to study. There are several drafts which are taking rounds. We haven't received any authentic draft so far from CBSE or NCERT or from the government. So I think it will be too early and immature to comment on that, except that in principle, it is very, very futuristic. What they are talking about is going to make a lot of sense. But on the other hand, we also need to understand that there is always a gap between what we wish to do and how do we implement it. What we have to look at it as a nation, that are we ready to adopt that kind of futuristic curriculum or approach towards education as a society? Do we have the resources? Do we have the wherewithal? This is how this is where it is going to matter the most. And most importantly, how the parent of today receives it for his or her child for tomorrow. That is one aspect as far as academic aspect is concerned. The second aspect is that still, if you look at it from larger perspective, from say, for example, perspective of Mr. Sethia, because he runs this school, he owns this school. I think this is where government would have to come out of its fixed approach towards education, because we need to understand that the kind of the schools they are looking at, they would need tremendous investments. And when there is a crunch of finance, how would you expect every person to run these schools for no profit? So again, when there is no clarity that what kind of return and what extent of return I am going to get out of my investment, everything will go back to the old practices. So the kind of ambition they have, they would have to change their approach to look at education. वो दिन education सेवा थी, education सेवा है, service है, लेकिन उस आदमी के point of view से भी सोचिए जो 500 करोड़, 700 करोड़, 300 करोड़ रुपया इन्वेस्ट करता है, कहाँ से आता है वो पैसा? कम से कम स्कूल्स चलाने के लिए आपको सेल्फ सस्टेनेबल मॉडल अगर बनाना है तो कहीं ना कहीं आपको काम करना पड़ेगा. And the kind of reaction, I'm so sorry to say that, but the kind of reaction we are looking these days, and look at these two opposite things, that we are coming out with a very, very pragmatic, approach towards education. And when it comes to reality, no fees for the schools, no respect for the teachers, no concern, forget respect, no concern towards the teachers. So I think, I'm not sure. On paper, it's beautiful, it's good, we appreciate it. How it will look on ground, I'm not sure. Please forgive me for being so upfront, but that's the reality. And sure. We are a hypocritical society. हम कहते कुछ हैं और करते कुछ। सेवा तब अच्छी लगती है जब अध्यापक को सम्मान मिले, और बहुत छोटी छोटी चीजों से सम्मान होता है. The kind of words, the kind of language is being used by politicians and parents. It's hurting, you know. People have given their lives in serving their kids. It's not about fees. It's not about money. It's not about sustainability. It's about that how you look at these teachers and how you look at these schools. So I think as a nation, as a society, a lot need to change. We have to internalize the kind of experiences these teachers and these schools have gone through, and then come out with some sort of a strategy so that this profession becomes a respectful profession. And it cannot happen unless we change the way we look at education in our country.
Excellent point, Dr. Madhav. I think you have touched the nerve of the issue which is being discussed here. Let me move on to Dr. Kamal Sethia, Chairman of the Vardhman Group. Your views about the policy.
Yeah, I fully agree with what Madhav has said. Policy is futuristic. It has certain new features like interdisciplinary approach, flexibility. You can switch on and off from a course. You can opt different subjects. The duration is the same, 15 years. See, as he said, it's too early to comment about it. But there's one thing for sure, that government has a major responsibility of providing a strong infrastructure and support to the education institutions. Now, I would also like to refer to Mr. Skand Bali, who said that we are future ready. Yes, 2% schools in the country are ready. But what about the remote areas, those 80–90% students? Have you seen the infrastructure there? Can we talk of the connectivity? They don't even have power. In fact, I would like to appeal to the government, to the corporates, to the NGOs, that we must have solar powered education labs set up in the rural areas. If we really want to do something, and if we really want to upskill our labor and the rural people there, this is something which is required from the government. And as Mr. Madhav has rightly said, Guru ko Shishya se vinamrata or adar mile, wahi kafi hai. In this difficult time, when there was a war between the schools and parents, everybody demonstrating against the schools, we will not pay fees. But then we said that we will not let the students suffer. The education should not suffer, because this is where the country will lose. And we don't want to do that. So we continued with the studies. We said, okay, whoever wants to pay can pay. Whoever wants to defer it can pay it later on. If you don't want to pay the quarterly fees, you can pay monthly. We reduced certain items which were not being used. But then there are costs involved. I'm sorry to say, but we don't have any world-class university in India. We don't have any, any institution which we can boast about that we have specialization in such a field. भारत तो विश्व गुरु हुआ करता था, और अभी हमारी ये हालत है कि हम we don't stand anywhere in the field of education because the government has not supported. In fact, in this period when the schools were struggling, they had additional inputs. We had to invest in infrastructure. We had to hire the tech platforms, the gadgets. We had to train the teachers. We had to do several other things which parents don't know of. But we have continued with that. We have faced those tough times, and we have seen that the students don't suffer. But here the support from government was lacking. This is all that I would like to add here.
Excellent points of Kamal Sethia. Your point about government has to support the school education system, and especially also both the government education and the private education system is very important to have. Let me reach out to Dr. Shalini Advani on this issue. Your views about the national education policy.
In first reading of the drafts, the policy has so many good things about it in terms of the aims of education, of opening up minds, of giving flexibility and developing risk-taking and all of those sorts of things. But all of these categories really are embedded in an approach and a functionality of schools. How do you develop independent thinking if you have a very rigid framework, which is a bureaucratic framework? And most schools are very tightly controlled with a system of inspections, with a very strongly laid out government mandate of what can be done, what cannot be done. You can't really embed a mindset that is open unless you have a framework which gives independence. And that framework, I think, needs very radically to change. When you talk to teachers in government schools, for instance, they will talk about how the most terrorizing thing is the inspector, who will not bother about the quality of teaching and learning, but only saying that on chapter 2, why did you not get the children to answer question number 3? So this is the level of inspection of what teachers have to confront, what principals have to confront. So somewhere that whole framework needs to be relooked at before these very high ideals in the NEP are going to come alive.
Great points, Shalini, about the bureaucratic structure which is controlling the whole education system. And unless that changes, the new education policy will be difficult to actually implement. Let me request Kavita Aggarwal, Chairman of MISA, to come in. Please unmute.
Mike.
So the detailed document has not yet come and we have not got the opportunity to read, but the framework what we have read is about the structure of the school education. That is 5 plus 3 plus 3 plus and 4. Welcome move to incorporate preschool education into school jurisdiction. It was much appreciated. And with this demarcation, at least the teachers and the educators and the leaders have got clear-cut idea about the expected learning outcome from that age group. So mental age and chronological age is well balanced with this structure. Number 2, I highly appreciate is that the government has taken a very strong initiative about brain drain. So if you see in like I am in touch with more than 100 schools which are international schools, and the trend which we have seen that the cream of the crowd, those who are highly intellectual and the academically very high achievers, they all move out of country. And whether they come back or no, that we don't know. So basically we are actually sending our best intellect and along with the money outside India. So for that, government has already taken care of. That was much appreciated. And skill-based education, inquiry-based education, this is all the best standards and practices are matched with all the international norms. That all we appreciate. That was highly recommended. And also the government has given the quite consumer friendly NEP, that is it's totally child friendly. I am able to do only 1 year of the graduation. What will I get? I'm not able to do second year. So second year, if I'm able to do, what will I get? So that flexibility has come into picture. Now the main the problem over here the education is on a concurrent list. Now, every state is going to take this education as per their, look at the education NEP as per their own agenda. Until it is not enforced as a law, I think on paper it is appealing, and on practical, in practical or in actually when it comes to implementation, how much it is going to be successful, it's a big question mark, big question mark. So that is the apprehension what we have. Otherwise, the NEP is beautiful, and on paper it's fantastic. Let us see the practicability. Also, I appreciate the government has opened the door for the foreign universities to come to India, because all our highly intellectual children were ready to go out. At least if the universities are coming to their doorsteps, some part of the youth is going to be retained in the country. So that is my take on NEP.
Great inputs, Dr. Kavita Aggarwal. Thanks for this. You said that policy looks great on the paper. Let's look at the implementation. Let me move on to Payal, Rajpal. Payal, there is a big focus in national education policy on technology. In fact, there is a talk about teaching coding from the 6th class itself. So you are from the technology space, and how do you see these moves in the focus on tech in the policy?
Right. So adding to the insightful inputs given by the stalwart educationists on the panel, I speak purely from perspectives of future skills, entrepreneurial development, employability, and a marginal effort to retain Indian talent pool within the country. When we talk about early childhood care and education with new curricular and pedagogical structure, a new framework including the preschool and Anganwadi years, I think it's fantastic, and I hope that it sees the light of the day, because in our championships, we witness a 6-year-old code and build from an idea to a working prototype, predominantly from private schools. And our aim at Robotex, being a non-profit, is to slowly develop rural students with technological abilities as well. And including this from class 6 onwards will order skills such as analysis, critical thinking, and conceptual clarity, which leads to higher employability and future skills. So as per the new policy, the students will begin classes on coding as well as vocational activities from class 6. It will certainly help towards blending in the approach of technology via AR, VR, and the expertise of the industry and academia, not only in empowering the teachers with the new tools, but also starting it at an extremely early age.
Great inputs, Payal. Thanks for this. May I reach out to Dr. Skand, Bali, and people have mentioned about brain drain. And, we have a classic example in your school of big brain drain happening, and the top leaders of the global companies like Microsoft are from your school. So how do you see this policy, Dr. Skand?
See, there are two ways of looking at it. I personally don't believe in the concept of brain drain at all. I think globalization has is a way of collaboration around the world, and the people who have moved out of India is not that they have taken entire thing out of the country. They are making our country proud wherever, whatever they are doing. They are sending remittances back to the country. So economically, India is getting affected and getting important. When they lead the global companies around the world, India does get power. India does get, empowered with it. So I personally don't believe in the concept of brain drain per se. and a lot of them are giving back to the country as well. You know, it's like within the country. If there are no opportunities in a village or a rural area, it's but natural that a person from the village would try to go to a big city or a big metropolitan to make a livelihood, to succeed in life. That does not mean that it's a brain drain from the village and village is going to get negatively affected with it. No, those people are going to send money back to their village. Those people, a lot of them do come back to their village after retirements as well. The similar is the concept at the international context as well. And it's a matter of pride for all of us as Indians that our fellow countrymen are leading all big companies in the world today and are doing fabulously well for India as well, and making a mark that the Indian brain is what you should always look for. You know, try and attract them and make most of it. That is my take on brain drain. But coming on the national education policy, which so I would agree with some of my fellow panelists that it's a very, very futuristic and a future-looking policy, which we have now. The saddest part is I remember Dr. Saraswat and I were having a conversation long back, I hope he remembers it, where we were thinking that how many educators in the country know that the national education policy exists? You know, you ask the people who are heading schools and becoming principals, you ask them, what is the national education policy? They wouldn't know. Many people would not know that this is not the first national education policy. You know, even the previous one was fabulous document. The problem was that neither the educators read it as their own Bible or Gita or spiritual book, nor they knew that there is something like that existed, nor was it implemented. I think a document would be as good as the implementation. So what is very important for us as educators is whenever the original draft or the document comes out from the government through authentic sources, as Dr. Saraswat said, either from the Ministry of Education or from the CBSE, ICSE, and CRT, some authentic organization, the moment they release it and share it with all the schools, I would urge all educators and heads of the schools to read that document, by heart that document. And even if it is not implemented by the government, even if there are no hard and fast rules of implementation of it, please pick up the good practices suggested in that policy and implement it. International baccalaureate came much later. Our previous national education policy of 1990s was even much better. It did talk about whatever international baccalaureate covers. But like a herd mentality, all the schools ran for international curriculum, thinking that, oh, the curriculum is going to make a difference. No, the delivery of the curriculum, execution of the curriculum is going to make a difference. So the national education policy has been a very good document. Even whatever you little bit know about it, hear about it from the media and understand it at the moment, it looks very, very promising. I'm very happy that the early years has been included in national education policy, which was neglected for a long time. I'm talking about pre-primary. I'm also very happy of 4 different structures of the education system, which makes sense to me because the human brain also adapts and absorbs most of the things till the age of 8. When the child is growing up, so they have taken scientific approach into it. I'm sure the best of the brains have created this policy. I think all of us as educators have to make sure that we implement this policy and we take education forward. So these are some of my views on both education policy as well as the brain drain.
Sure. Great inputs, Skand, and we are almost at the end of this session, and I'm requesting each of the panelists to just say one line of concluding remarks on what positivity we are like you are seeing in these challenging situations. We have talked about lots of challenges. So one line of concluding remarks from each of you. Let me request Dr. Kamal Sethia to start.
A lot of brainstorming has taken place and various issues have come up. We are examining them. I'm sure that the future will be very positive. We have learned a lot from COVID. Technology has come to stay and it will be more formulated in terms of technological support, gadgets, and the training of teachers. and ultimately the students will benefit from it. Thank you.
Great. Let me request Dr. Kavita Aggarwal to give your concluding remarks. One line. Please unmute yourself.
I would like to say that with today's discussion, I would like to state one thing, that with this COVID pandemic, we have learned that blended learning is the future of the education, where the students, the parents, the teachers, and the school leaders, they all have become open-minded. They all have a lot of opportunity to experiment and explore, and lot of time to actually evaluate their own self and look into their own self. So this is giving a total freedom of education in true sense. So that compartmentalized education, which was tight corner, now it has come in open, and a lot of scope is available now.
Sure. Excellent point, Dr. Kavita. May I request Dr. Madhav Saraswat to give a concluding answer?
Two things. As far as today's discussion is concerned, I'm so happy to see that all of us as teachers are on the same page. And second is, if we look at the impact of COVID-19, everything has been fast forwarded. But through this platform, I would like to just say one thing, that I'm hugely, I feel indebted to the teachers' fraternity. The way they have come up, the way they have accepted this challenge, and the way they have responded is phenomenal. Whether they were in a village, or they were in a town, or they were as fortunate to be part of the best schools, and this nation should bow to them instead of troubling them.
Great point, Dr. Madhav. We are all aware that how teachers are doing a great service in these challenging situations. This is commendable, and hats off to all the teachers and all the school leaders who have taken this challenge and delivering the education at homes, like through the online systems. Thank you for that. And let me request Payal Rajpal to give your concluding remarks. Payal.
Thank you, Dr. Gupta. I would like to say that the COVID-19 crisis may well change our world and our global outlook. It may also teach us about how education needs to change to be able to better prepare our young learners for what the future might hold, redefining roles of educators, teaching life skills needed for the future, bridging digital divide. But more importantly, it is our hope that for Generation Z, Alpha, and the generations to come, these experiences of isolation and remote learning away from their peers, teachers, and classroom will serve as a cautious reminder of the importance of our human need for face-to-face social interaction. Thank you.
Yes. Human interaction is very important. Thanks for highlighting that, Payal. May I request Dr. Shalini Advani to give your concluding remarks, please?
I'm going to have to be a bit repetitive, but it's something that is so important that I'm happy to reiterate what Dr. Madhav said. For me, the shining light has been the educators. Their willingness to adapt and change. If you look at the webinars around the world that have happened, which teachers have willingly attended, we've had, the various ones where you have 2,000 teachers at 8 o'clock at night attending of their own volition. It is absolutely remarkable, the job that they have done. Their ingenuity in managing online, not just their own subject and their classroom teaching, but putting together events, prize distributions, or, teachers are talking about, okay, so how are we going to celebrate Independence Day online? All of these things, the degree of adaptability and human resilience and hard work of teachers has been absolutely stunning. And I think it's a great indicator of what is possible when people have to do it, and what passion there is for education amongst our teachers, and what caring there is for children. I think that is something that has really been a great shining light over this time.
Yes. Excellent point, Dr. Shalini. Thanks for highlighting the role of teachers in these situations. And Dr. Skand, Bali, you have the responsibility of concluding all the conclusions into the one conclusion and end this session.
No. I mean, I'm not. I'm nothing in front of my fellow panelists. They're all my, elders here. But I would agree with them. Yes, the teaching community needs to be given credit the way they have faced it. The future is very bright. The future is bright because COVID has brought the educators and the education across the world closer. The gap which was earlier there has not been there anymore. There are more people, more educators connecting with each other than what it was earlier. So I think we need to let those doors open. We have to make sure that we learn from each other. There is so much to learn from everyone. Collaborate more, create more associations if you can. The idea is teacher development, professional development of the teachers, and they will take things heads on the way they have shown us in COVID as well. Unfortunately, over the years, we have neglected their growth, professional growth of teachers. There has been very less investment in the professional development of teachers. I think that is what we need to do. And we all need to understand that there is always somebody there to help us out. So we need to just shout out loud. I'm sure if I write a mail to any of my fellow panelists that I'm facing this problem in my educational journey, I'm sure they'll be more than happy to help me. So I think we have to understand that the world of education has become closer. We have never debated, discussed, talked about education as much as we did during the COVID times. I hope it continues. So I'm really honored to be in the company of all my fellow educators, and thanks to you as well. Thank you so much.
Great. Let me thank for all our panelists for an excellent discussion. Thank you, Dr. Skand Bali, Dr. Kamal Sethia, Dr. Shalini Advani, Payal, and Kavita Aggarwal ji, and Dr. Madhav, Saraswat, and Payal Rajpal for joining this excellent session. Thank you so much. Gratitude to all of you for joining us. Namaskar.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much.